Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Just going to go over the West Coast Eagles injury list today that just came out tonight, as well as predicted changes for next week. But before I start, if you're new to the channel or you are a watcher and you haven't subscribed, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps the channel out. I'm going to beg you no longer. I'm just going to get straight into it. So, injury list, of course, released today. Starting to get a bit, how you going? Obviously, the probably biggest disappointment from the weekend was, of course, Milan Murdoch going out of the side with hamstring awareness. Now, he hasn't been confirmed a time yet because he is, of course, listed to be TBC, but apparently it's not too bad. But he still needs assessment, of course. How many times have we heard that over the journey the last few years? And then it drags out to 4 to 6 weeks. But from all sounds of things, not too bad. But of course, the other big news was Harry Edwards and his concussions. I really feel for Harry. He's obviously had a bit of a wretched run with concussions, and hopefully the club just gives him plenty of time to get over this. Thoughts out to Harry Edwards and wish him a speedy recovery. So straight off the top, Elijah Hewitt is actually available again, but I dare say he'll probably get a bit more of a block of training in after some soft tissue injuries to finish off what was a mostly good pre-season. Disappointing that he got injured towards the end, but thankfully he's now available for selection, as is Jack Williams, who also recovered from a soft tissue injury. I think he's quad. Sadie Brock is a test for this week, so he could come in for Harry Edwards, although we do have Rep Basil available. Tom Gross, another 1 to 2 weeks. Jack Hutchinson apparently coming back in and starting to look to rejoin the main group soon. Tyler Brockman, not really any news in here. Fred Rodriguez is apparently recovering really well. Sam Allen's doing more aerobic stuff, so it looks like he's on the road to recovery. Really pleased to see him only 8 weeks away listed. Just looking at his junior highlights and the likes, this looks really exciting. Highly athletic, probably a best runner at the club already. He ran something like a 5 minute and 47 2 kilometre time trial, and his vertical leap's almost as good as Nat Nui's, so pretty keen to see what he can do. Brandon Starcevic, still a bit of time away. From in the report, they said they want to really build up his fitness because he missed so much of the preseason towards the end. So it seems like a building fitness block for him, and to ensure that he's over the injuries. Milan Murdoch I've touched on, and of course we know, unfortunately, Longy's out for the season. So with that in mind, I'll just go through my predicted changes for the weekend. So starting with the defenders, of course, Brady Hoff, just a lock for me. Just put it in the book, don't worry about it. I've got Ruben Jimby listed at fullback. I mean, obviously only 191, but he did a pretty good job on Larky on the weekend once he was moved to him when Harry Edwards went down, and especially once Tyler Young was also off for a significant portion of the game with that rolled ankle, and did a great job, I thought. I mean, he got the second most coaches' votes for a West Coast Eagles player, and he just dominated that back line. So I'm really happy just slotting him at fullback permanently, to be honest. But obviously, being a third tall defender would also suit him as well. Having said that, Port Adelaide don't really have huge threats other than Mitch Georgiades, who's exceptionally good young player, but I reckon Ruben would probably have his measure, being probably a bit more athletic and a bit more really tough opponent to play on. So Liam Duggan keeps his spot. I've spoken about Duggo in the match review if you want to have a look. Again, bit of a slow start last week, but he's a co-captain. I can't see him going out of the side, and the coaches and the team do love him, so I can't see him getting moved on anytime soon. I've got Ryan Marrick coming back in. I really tossed up between whether it would be Marrick or Josh Lindsay. Josh Lindsay was kept out of the waffle scratchy on the weekend, whereas Ryan Marrick did play and reportedly did quite well. So I don't know if that's just protecting a young player after the big road trip to the Gold Coast the week before in the case of Lindsay and keeping him as an emergency, or maybe they just wanted to give Marrick some minutes and he'll come back in being the more experienced player. Not sure, we'll see. Tyler Young, I've got at centre-half back, slotting him. And of course, Liam Baker rounding out the back line. No changes to the midfield for me. Willem Dersmer on the wing, of course. Harley, best on ground for us against Port Adelaide. Hopefully he'll have as good a game, if not better, like he did against Port last year. Played quite well. I reckon he's going to be pretty revved up for taking on Jason Horne-Francis and the likes again after the scene that he made last year with the whole mummy's boy going home thing, which is pretty funny. I'm sure he'll endear himself to the non-WA media even further in that case. And of course, Hamish Davis on the other wing. Matthew Flynn, Bailey Williams, apparently was the standout in the waffle scratchy again against East Freo, but like I also touched on again in the review video very briefly when I was talking about Flinney, Bailey Williams didn't come up against a really recognised waffle ruck. So I think his opponent was 198 and Luke Stranatica wasn't playing, so he didn't really have much competition, but apparently he played a really strong game in the ruck, just dominated the centre hitouts, went forward, played really well, kicked a few goals, and apparently took mark of the century, as he does have a pretty huge leap, so it's good to see. And then I've got followers being Tom McCarthy and Dev Robertson, although could be Yo. Doesn't really matter, we know what Yo will do. Having said that, Tom McCarthy did play a bit of the weekend in the back line, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him interchanging between halfback and around the ball. But I think they'll persist with that experiment, even though I do like him in the back line. I think he does look more comfortable as that distributor. Dev Robertson, of course, our second highest possession getter on the weekend against North. Hopefully he plays a bit more of a defensive role on Butters. I would like to see him play that role. He was actually, I think, our best player against Port in the preseason game, so he can play quite well against them. And with Port not having Rosie in the side, it really only leaves Butters as the real threat in the midfield. So I'm feeling Dev could probably go to him and do some kind of run with role and try to beat him around the ball and let Harley do his thing. Cripper, apparently no issue with the shoulder. He wasn't listed in the injury report and he trained fully today, so that's good to see. Oh, you know what you're going to get from Jamie Cripps. Cripps is pretty reliable, good forward pressure, especially in the absence of Milan Murdoch, who unfortunately goes out of the side. Job Shanahan, of course, our Rising Star nomination for the week, so I think they could have raffled it off between him, CDT, and Dersma. But I think Job, it's really good to see him rewarded for some consistency, especially last year where he kicked 12 goals from 9 games. Just as a little bit of a tidbit, that's actually more goals than JK kicked in his first 2 years at Carlton, so he's tracking very well, young Job, and of course helping out in the back line as well. Jack Graham had a really strong game, just applying so much pressure and really locked down on LDU's ability to impact the game after quarter time against North Melbourne. So he is another option that could go to Butters. Butters is really quite a lot more athletic to LDU. LDU still has that burst and sidestep, but Butters has a lot of speed. I'm not sure Graham might be able to match him for speed, but he would be another option to play a lockdown role on Butters if he starts to get off the chain. So there is another option there. Jacob Newton had a quiet game stats-wise, but I still felt he was quite impactful in the game versus North Melbourne. He still applied a lot of front forward 50 pressure, around the ball, causing a lot of rush disposals, sort of tapping the ball out to teammates, locking the ball in. So I feel like even though he's a low disposal getter, the coaches really seem to like what he's doing. He plays really well to instruction. I feel like they're going to give him extended run to make that position his own. Having said that, if they do opt for a change for Newton, Malachi Champion has kicked, I think, at least 3 goals in the last 2 waffle practice games. So he is an option that could come in if the coaches decide Newton needs a spell in the twos. Jake Waterman, not really much else needs to be said about him. Obviously, Mr. Reliable just needs to get his radar back on. There were some comments I read online about him potentially carrying something. It does look a little bit stiff around the midriff, but I think Jakey will be fine. He'll play well, and we need him to play a role because Port Adelaide do have a much better defence than North Melbourne do, especially with the 2 threat of Alira Leah and Radical Leah. And the other one rounding it out is Cooper Duff Tytler. It's really good that he's so clean below his knees. It really doesn't make us be too tall in the forward line, like a lot of us probably thought and feared that would be the case coming into the last couple of games. We're so used to the whole land of the Giants under Woosher, and even Simo used to like doing that with these immobile forwards. But Cooper Duff Tytler is like a small forward below his knees. He's just so clean that we don't lose anything out of that because of how good below he is at ground level and how agile he is, especially around other players his size. So I'm sure he'll stay in the team, which is good. And just rounding out the interchange, of course, I've got Archer Reid. He noticed that unlike the Gold Coast game, he actually did a fair bit of backup ruck early in the game against Cherry and North Melbourne. So looks like the coaches decided to use him in that role a bit as well. Elliot Yeo had, and of course, as we knew, a pretty standout game for him. Second call-up, that kick from the boundary line at 3/4 time was just incredibly good and just revved the crowd up. It was awesome to see. So good to have him back. And Tim Kelly played a really solid game. I think he had 6 tackles, about 19 or 20 disposals. So really good hit out for him, alternating between half forward and the midfield. and just looks a lot more rejuvenated and enthusiastic to play. Maybe that was a byproduct of being left out of round one, but good to see him keep his place. And it gives us a really healthy balance of maturity and youth around the ball. And rounding it out, I've actually got Harry Schonberg replacing Milan Murdoch. So as we know, it probably would have been the other way around if Schonberg didn't tummy tap during the Port game and get that one game suspension, because Milan Murdoch then got his opportunity in round one and would be a permanent fixture of this side if not for the hamstring injury. So Harry Schonberg now gets a chance to showcase his ability against the team that he just got rubbed out against in the preseason. So I think he'll have a bit of a bone to pick. He, obviously being a former Adelaide player, is probably not much of a fan of Port Adelaide, and I think that he'll want to put his best foot forward and turn it on for this game. So that rounds out the injury list and my team predictions for the upcoming game against Port Adelaide at the crack of dawn on Sunday morning for you guys in WA. Nice early game out of the heat so you can get the rest on your day. I'm not sure the players will enjoy being up at 5 a.m. for that one though. So that's it for there, guys. I'll drop a preview for the game later in the week, including matchups and so forth and where I can think will win the game. And again, if you do like my content, please leave me a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll keep you updated on all things Eagles. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.